Thank you very much for joining me, everyone. It's lovely to see so many people and see some familiar faces. Hello to all of you. For anyone who doesn't know me, I mean, how dare you, first of all? My reputation precedes me. My name is Gareth. I am one of the trainers here at Society Matters, and I am going to be taking you through this short webinar we've put together about breaking the cycle, housing benefits, and the pathway after prison. I'm going to caveat this first of all and say that had some last-minute tech issues, and I'm having to use a TV as my second screen. So if I look like I'm looking up here, it's because I am. Technology, it's wonderful, isn't it? Katie, I can see you saying you can't hear anything. Can everyone else hear me all right? Yeah? All right, if you'd maybe just want to try leaving and rejoining, Katie, I'll keep an eye out for you. As I say, my name is Gareth, and I'm going to be taking you through this session today. Now, there is that lovely photo of me that some of you might know already in all of my cheeseball glory. There it is. I always say, and I do still mean it now, just as much as I did the last time I saw some of you, I do hate that photo. We're not going to spend a lot of time looking at it. So everybody say hello, and everybody say goodbye. So what are we going to be talking about for the next hour or so? So we're going to think about what challenges do prisoners face when they leave prison. We're going to talk about how we can support prisoners in respect of benefits and housing in particular to help set them up for a successful kind of reintegration into wider society. We're then going to think about where can we go for additional support, what kind of resources are out there. And then lastly, there will be a bit of time at the end for a bit of a Q&A in case you guys do have any specific questions. If you have any questions at any point, please do feel free to just take yourselves off mute or pop a message in the chat. I am keeping an eye on it. Hopefully the people who have met me before will vouch that I'm about as intimidating as a cream egg. So if you have any questions at any point, Michelle, don't shake your head. How dare you? If you have questions at any point, just take yourselves off mute, pop a message in the chat. But there will be sort of dedicated time at the end for a bit of Q&A. So this session is going to, we've said an hour, but in practice it might be a little bit quicker than that because we have budgeted time for that Q&A. So before I get into things properly, if I may just give you a little bit of background about myself and about us as Society Matters, just in case this is your first time joining us and you're sat there thinking, who is that fella and what's he doing here? As I say, my name's Gareth. I work for Society Matters, which is the trading subsidiary of Citizens Advice Gateshead, but we are a KIC, a community interest company. So what we do is we deliver a range of courses on various different kind of social welfare issues. So think the benefit system or individual benefits, think prisoners, think housing, think immigration, think debt. It's citizens' advice. So if you can think of it, then we probably do cover it. And we do very much try and feed that knowledge and that experience that we have as advisors into webinars and courses like this today. And ultimately, all of the profits that we make from those courses do get gifted back to the charity to fund the wonderful projects that it has. And on the screen there is just a few of the organisations that we're very proud to support and to work alongside. So just to give us a bit of context then, we'll get right into it. Just to give us a bit of context, just some statistics to get us thinking. So according to the Ministry of Justice statistics that were released about 3 months ago, 1,070 people a month are released into homelessness. Now that is a 40% increase in comparison to the previous year. 40% it's gone up by in 1 year, 1,070 people a month. An offender released into homelessness is twice as likely to reoffend compared to someone with what I'm going to call settled accommodation. You know, your home really is the foundation of your life, isn't it? It's kind of your sanctuary, your safe space, whatever you want to call it. So what happens then if you don't have that? You are statistically far more likely to reoffend, and then what effect does that have on a person's life and life chances? Historically, a third of prisoners were released on Fridays. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. There is some research that shows that when a person is released from prison, again, can significantly alter their chances of reoffending in the future. And according to the Institute for Government, the employment rate for prison leavers currently stands at 19% 6 weeks from release, and only 31% are in employment 6 months from release. Oh, sorry, Louise, I can just see you saying there, can you have the slides? Yes, we will be able to send you a copy of the slides. I will send them in an email shortly after the end of the session today. The session is also, as I mentioned, it is being recorded as well. But yes, I will be able to send you a copy of the slides. No problem. Just out of curiosity, is anyone surprised by any of those statistics? Or not surprised? That's fine too. Samantha, no bother. thank you for making the effort. That's all that matters. Shell, I'm going to pick on you if I may. You're shaking your head. You're not surprised. Why is that?
Um, we do see quite a lot of homelessness in Nottingham, especially around the train stations and probation. So that doesn't surprise me at all, especially when it used to be on a Friday because they're struggling to get into the DWP and housing associations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You get released at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and you've got 3 hours to register with a doctor and think about where you're going to find a place to stay and make your UC claim and all of that. It's a tall order for anyone, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? I can see Louise saying in the chat, not really surprised. Oh, but optimists here, guys. I like it. I like it. I promise I'm not trying to make everyone really sad. Totally not surprised, Michelle saying as well.
Does that represent the whole country?
Yeah, across the UK. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Why do you think there might have been such a jump? So thinking about this statistic here, 1,000, sorry, typo there, 1,070 people a month are released into homelessness. That's a 40% increase compared to the previous year. Why do you think it might have increased so much?
We had that big release, didn't we, in September twice last year,
Yeah.
where all the ones that were getting to the end of their sentences were released. So
Yeah.
that could have made an increase.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. So the government policy essentially might have led to that increase. You would like to think that if they were going to sort of implement those measures, that there might have been a bit more thought about where people are going to go, what kind of accommodation is available for them. Reduce government funding, Tia saying. Louise just saying government. Yeah. Yeah, I do think government policy is certainly part of it. So I'm going to ask you a question, guys. Oh, sorry, my laptop's having a moment. There we go. In your experience, how does the prison system support or not support people leaving prison when it comes to rejoining society, for want of a better phrase? What's good about it? What's bad about it? Well, I'll say bad, but what could be improved?
From my perspective, our perspective as finance benefit and debt advisors in probation contracts, it's the fact that so much isn't done before they leave. So things like anticipating their needs for, benefit claims, new bank accounts, kind of all that sort of gubbins isn't done. They're not prepared. I'd love to do half of my job in prison. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Obviously I deserve it, but also, like it would just help people feel a bit more prepared before they have to enter society and all the anxieties that's going to bring again.
Absolutely. That support early, putting it in place earlier, really is crucial, isn't it? Because otherwise, how are you setting that person up if they're just sort of walking out the door, if you'll pardon the expression, and just saying, right, crack on, away you go, and maybe we haven't thought beforehand about have they got everything they need for UC or have they got a place to stay or whatever it might be. We need to get that support in place earlier. Gaynor, I can see you've got your hand up there, very polite.
Yeah, we run the Doncaster Departure Lounge just outside the prison.
All right.
All releases coming out, and there are so many things that need sorting when they come in. It could be that they need to ring DWP or they're running late for the probation officer. It could be that they've got medication mix-ups in the prison or they've got no discharge grant. There is a multitude of issues that take quite a long time. Now, if that person was being released into the community with all those problems to sort, they would be really overwhelmed and quite anxious. So I think they'd probably go out. We've had it before. They've gone out. It's just too overwhelming. I'll be back on Monday. Whereas if you can solve all those issues before they're released or during the time in the departure lounge, it's a much easier process for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it can totally be overwhelming for people. Maybe they've spent however long in prison and sort of got used to it, for want of a better phrase, and then they come out and then, like you say, they've got all these issues that they've got to deal with. Is it any surprise that people feel overwhelmed? They struggle with it? Yeah. Sandra, I can see you've got your hand up there, sorry. Oh, you're going to say something there, Sandra? I can't see if you're talking, but just you're
Yeah.
talking. There we go.
If they release people on a monthly basis, do they notify the local authorities how many are being released within their area or catchment area so they could prepare?
Not to my knowledge, not that I'm aware of.
So the local authority as well is unprepared as to when they're released, and
Yeah,
they
so
are
then they'll come out of prison and say they'll make a homelessness application for the local authority, for instance, but they wouldn't necessarily get a heads up of, oh, this person's going to be
That
out.
would seem a bit ridiculous, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because that means if the local authorities were advised in advance
hmm hmm
and you
Yeah,
know it's
just that,
going to be on a Friday,
yeah, a bit of joined up thinking really would be very beneficial, wouldn't it?
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
no worries. Sorry, I can just see some messages in the chat as well. Lack of joined up services between prison
Yeah.
and the community. I read just yesterday that someone on ADHD medication in prison couldn't access the same medication in the community because the healthcare provider couldn't provide a particular certificate because they weren't able to do this. Able to do this because of the system in place. Yeah, it can feel quite siloed, quite insular, certainly. Homelessness applications Louise mentioned, Stuart, no support, set up to fail. Do you think that's intentional? Maybe I'm being a bit controversial there. Cheryl, I noticed you're giving a little wave there, sort of so.
Suppose it can be some
Can be.
people set up to fail. You know, like the ones that are always back in 24/7. It's like, why are you releasing them when you know they're just going to be back in? And I suppose depending on their offence as well, are they safer still inside than on the outside?
No, that's a fair point. Absolutely. It's a lot to do with poor system design. The local authority won't acknowledge homelessness until they're actually released from prison. Yeah, we've talked about. Prisoners often in prison for months because they know who their probation officer is and often have no details about the release or where they'll be released until the final few days. So again, are they just going to have a couple of days to plan, to think about where am I going to go? Have I got everything I need to apply for my benefits or whatever it might be? Just some joined up thinking like we talked about would be beneficial, wouldn't it? So we're going to think about two issues in particular, because call me a little bit biased, work for Citizens Advice, but I do think that these are very important. So one of the big challenges that people will face when it comes to leaving prison, we've talked about this a little bit already, this idea of benefits, so particularly universal credit. So for example, with universal credit, can't generally make a claim while you're in prison, got to wait until you're out. You've got to wait 5 weeks to get your first UC payment. How are you going to manage in that 5 weeks? Have you got everything that you need to make your claim? You'll need a bank account. Have you got a bank account? Have you not? You'll need valid photo ID. What's valid photo ID?
Passport.
Yeah, but have you got a passport? Is it in date? Driver's license? Okay, so your passport is, I think it's about £95 if you need a new passport, or about 105 if you do the paper one. Your provisional license, even a new one, you're looking at about £45. Have you got the money for that? When you leave prison, you'll get your prison subsistence payment, about £90 thereabouts. So potentially there's half your money gone on your driving license, or all of your money and then some gone on your passport. The prison could at least help with bank accounts and provisional driving license. So there is some support that can be available potentially when it comes to things like thinking about benefits specifically with universal credit, for instance. If you don't have a bank account, then we do have the option of using something called the payment exemption service. So the payment exemption service is an alternative where somebody doesn't have a bank account. It's a way of people still being able to receive their benefit money every month without actually having a bank account. I will say from my experience as an advisor, you do need to fight for the payment exception service though, because the DWP, they do not like using it. I don't know if it's because it's maybe more hassle for them or whatever it might be, but generally speaking, from my own experience at least, the few times where I've had to arrange that with the DWP, we have had to sort of fight our corners a little bit. The payment exemption service, for anyone not familiar, so essentially, instead of having your money paid into your bank account, it would be paid through or rather a code would be sort of texted or emailed to the person. They would take that code to a PayPoint or a post office outlet, and then you get your money by presenting that code. There's a weird little quirk of the system, for want of a better phrase, that the vouchers you get are only worth up to £100 a pop. So if you're due something like £1,200, say, in UC that month, you will get 12 different vouchers that you will have to take. And it might be that, they don't have enough money for at that particular place. So like in the past, I have had clients where, bless them, they've had to go to like 3 or 4 different PayPoint outlets to get the benefit money. So we do have the option there of the payment exemption service. But the idea of the valid form photo ID, I mean, that's a problem that we see even now. I mean, I remember was it about year and a half ago, the government introduced these veterans ID cards, right, to prove that you're a veteran. Okay, clue is in the name. And a couple of months later, there were local elections. And of course, now to vote in elections, you need to have photo ID. So what happened was people went to the polling booth to cast a vote, took the veterans ID, and then got told, oh, sorry, this isn't actually recognised as a valid form of photo ID. They just never thought to connect the dots. So that's a problem that we face even now. So then what's it going to be like for somebody that's leaving prison where they don't have, like we said, the passport, the driving license, or whatever it might be? How are you going to manage in that period? Citizenship card. Oh, lovely. After looking at that, Shell. Thanks for that. So, with universal credit, you can't typically get it while you are in prison. The exception to that is the housing element. The housing element can continue for 6 months while we are in prison. After that, it will stop. The claim will close. So if after that point somebody comes out of prison, they will need to reclaim universal credit, and it will be a whole new application that they have to make. There are certain rules around reclaiming universal credit if you sort of come off it and then go back to it within, I think it's 6 months. However, that doesn't apply to prisoners. They will need to make a whole new, it will close the claim, they will need to make a whole new application sort of from scratch. So what happens then while I'm in prison? So I can see case for ID. Universal credit have a way to do exceptions. It will take the person's license conditions letter. Oh, lovely, lovely. All right. Can they not? Can they not reinstate their previous claim, or is that just PIP? That is just PIP, because PIP is suspended while someone is in prison there, Amy. But no, with UC, unfortunately, it would just close the claim. But yeah, PIP is essentially suspended while someone is in prison. Does the 6 months of housing element include people on remand? Yes, it will. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Sorry, before we crack on. No? All good? Right. So, come on, laptop. It's not my friend today, sorry. So, thinking about benefits then, how can we break that barrier? How can we get over that problem? What can we do? So we have touched on it a little bit already. We need to start thinking about the person getting out as soon as possible. Now, we said that might be challenging because depending on the circumstances, they might only get a few days' notice. But we need to start thinking about that as soon as possible, because the earlier we can get that support in place, the sooner or the easier we can make that transition and ultimately set the person up for life on the outside, for want of a better phrase. Now, the DWP should have specialist, what they call prison work coaches. Now, they are not the same as your job centre work coaches. Prison work coaches, as the name implies, work specifically with prisoners. Their role at that point is sort of setting the person up to maybe claim something like universal credit down the line. So they should be able to assist with things like getting your documents in order. Right? Have you got a place to stay? Okay. Have you thought about where you're going to be living? Because we're going to need evidence of your housing costs if we want to get the housing element of UC. Have you got the right forms of ID or whatever it might be? Oh, you've got health conditions. Okay. Yeah, registered with a GP. Do you need some help with that? So we have the option there of the prison work coach, or alternatively, sometimes they will have resettlement workers instead in prison. But it's a similar kind of concept. It's about helping that person get set up for when they come out of prison. But the earlier that we can get that support in place, the better at the end of the day. Excuse me. Perks the job. I'm losing my voice a little bit. Apologies. What I will do, I will pop a link in the chat. This is just a link to a guide from the DWP that deals with universal credit and prison leavers specifically. And it talks a lot more about the role of prison work coaches and resettlement workers and so on. But I've just popped it in the chat there. When it comes to housing then, so like we said, you can't claim universal credit while you're in prison. Exception to that is the housing element of UC. It continues for 6 months. Now, there is the possibility that while you are in prison, you might ultimately find yourself homeless because, for example, your landlord might carry out, say, a Section 21 eviction, a no-fault eviction, where they don't need to give a reason. As long as they follow the correct process, then you're out. There's not really anything we can do to stop a Section 21 eviction. So then not only are you in prison, but then when you come out, you've got to think, where am I going to go? Now, we've touched on this idea of the impact of homelessness. And if you'll sort of forgive me for calling a spade, what do you think it does to someone when they don't have a home?
Not good mentally. The
No,
mental health
no,
and family.
yeah. No stability, no safety. It's not good for them. It's not good for their family. Fight or flight. Demoralized. Of course you would be. Do you know where you're going to sleep that night? Vulnerable. Absolutely, Matilda. I totally agree. Some would rather be back in prison. Yeah, and you do see that. People come out of prison and they're sort of so institutionalized, if you'll pardon the expression. Maybe it's difficult for people to cope, and then they do just end up going back into prison, or because they're struggling again with life on the outside, for want of a better phrase, they think, do you know what? I'm just going to go back in, and they'll steal or whatever it might be. Then what? No sense of belonging. Do you feel part of your community? I guess it's probably not if you don't have a home, unfortunately. Increased likelihood of reoffending. Yeah, absolutely. You feel failed by the system. No way of being contacted. Yeah, absolutely. Your home is kind of your, like we said earlier, kind of your sanctuary. It's the place where you're supposed to be safe, but it is kind of your, also from a sort of logistical point of view, if I get post, it's going to come to my home address. So what do I do then? Can't secure employment, so it creates another barrier. Yeah, so it's not just about not having a home, it'll affect every aspect of your life. Sandra, I can see you've got your hand up there, sorry.
Yes, but I do think as well that all people who are made homeless for whatever reason have the same feelings as well, especially if you've got children responsible for children.
Yeah.
That sense of not having a home is going to impact on everyone who's in that situation. And unless you're in that situation, you will not know how you're going to respond or feel.
No, totally agree, and thank you for that. So then, how do we deal with this issue of housing? What can we do? So, like we talked about, that early support that is absolutely crucial. So I mentioned prisons will have resettlement workers, and what they can do is they can liaise with housing providers, whoever it might be, to help prisoners find sort of settled accommodation after they leave prison. If a prisoner is at risk of homelessness, then of course we do have the option potentially of making a homeless application to the local authority. We do have that rule, if you like, that 56-day rule that we need to be sort of threatened with homelessness or homeless within the next 56 days. But beyond that, we should be trying to make an application to the local authority as soon as possible. Do bear in mind as well, depending on the type of accommodation that you're ultimately placed in, if it's something like supported or sheltered accommodation, like I used to work in a supported housing service, we did have ex-offenders in there. And so in their case, it would be in terms of benefits, once again, it would be housing benefit that they apply for rather than universal credit. Can still get universal credit, it's just that in that case, it would not include the housing element of UC because the rent would be paid by housing benefit instead. Excuse me. Does anyone have any questions about anything, folks? No? All good? Right. So, another issue I want to touch on just briefly is this idea of Friday releases. Now, they are a little bit less common these days, thankfully. Sandra, if it's all right, would you mind just popping your microphone on mute, please?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Thank you. So they're not as common these days. So the idea of Friday releases, the reason that they are controversial is because there is research that shows that if you are released on Friday, statistically, you are more likely to reoffend. You are, simple as that. And that is similar to what we touched on already. Think about the services that you've got to access. So I get released at 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. All right, so a lot of services might only be open, say, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I've got 4 hours to find a place to live, to register with a GP, to whatever it might be. It sets that clock ticking, doesn't it? And it's a tall order for anyone. To that end, the government made some changes about 2023 to Friday release dates to enable them to release some people a bit earlier in the week, so usually a Wednesday or a Thursday instead, to give them a bit more time to access those services and kind of set them up for life again and sort of reintegrating. That is a good thing. I'm on board with that. I really am. But the thing is, it only applies to some people. Specifically, it applies to prisoners who have far to travel from prison to return home, mental health issues, or substance misuse issues. Now, if you look at the rates of things like mental health issues or substance misuse issues in the sort of the prison population versus the general population, excuse me, then yes, that is far more common in prisons compared to, say, the general population. What I don't like, though, is this idea of far to travel from prison to return home, because there isn't actually anything in legislation that defines what is far to travel. Is it 5 miles? Is it 10 miles? Is it 50 miles? Don't actually know. Sorry, I'm just seeing a comment in the chat. Resettlement worker made the wrong housing application after 6 years. Oh, bless you. 6 years on the waiting list. I was told I would have to reapply and lose 6 years of being on the waiting list. Till this day, I still don't have local authority housing. Oh, Stuart, I am sorry to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. That must have been really, really difficult. I imagine it still is. And I hope you're getting some support from, maybe go up somewhere like Citizens Advice, for instance. But thank you for sharing that. That must be really difficult, and I hope that resolves itself. So with this idea of Friday release dates, I'm all for it. I understand it. But this idea of far to travel from prison to return home, I'm less keen on, because there's nothing that actually defines what constitutes far to travel in that sense. And if you think about mental health issues, substance misuse issues, yes, it will apply to a lot of prisoners, or certainly, as we said earlier, more people in comparison to the general population. But what about the people that don't? So tough, you can still get out at 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. you'll manage, you're fine. Is that the approach that we're taking? Is that setting people up? I'm going to ask you a question, and I might be a little bit controversial here. What's the point of prison? Have I set the cat amongst the pigeons? What is prison for?
Reform.
Reform?
Rehabilitation or
Rehabilitation? Rehabilitation? Yeah, it looks like
punishment, I suppose.
Yeah, I can say it. Louise saying punishment. Separate dangerous people from society. Oh, I've got a mixed bag. I promise I didn't mean to be controversial, I promise. But it's always nice to hear people's different views. So some people think then it's about reform. Some people think it's about rehabilitation. Some people think it's about punishment, about separating people, protecting the public. I can see Michelle saying, Samantha, it's meant to be a deterrent and a punishment, but the punishment is being locked up. How you're treated in prison should be about rehabilitation. Yeah.
Hear on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what about when you get out?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm just on a meeting.
Oh.
All right.
Michelle, if it's all right, would you mind just popping yourself on mute?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, my God.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, no.
Hi, Michelle. Would you mind just popping yourself on mute if that's all right? Thank you. Sorry, folks. So some people think it's about reform, rehabilitation. Some people think it's about punishment. And to be honest, I largely agree with what people are saying in the chat. The punishment, to me at least, is about being you're locked up. That loss of liberty that I can see Sandra mentioning as well. But when you're in prison, call me a bleeding heart liberal, I think it's about rehabilitation. It's about, okay, how can we improve things for you so that this doesn't happen again? But for want of a better phrase, that's not the most eloquent way of saying it. But then if you're coming out of prison and you're facing problems with your housing, with your benefits, with getting released on Fridays, and oh, now I've got to wait till Monday to get signed up with my GP, and oh, I've got to sort my universal credit claim, and oh, I've got my ID, oh, I've got 90 quid to my name because that's all I get for my prison subsistence payment. Oh, how is that setting people up for any kind of positive future? I think some prisons do this well, but others don't. I don't know why it is the standard. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I was reading something, so I'm in the northeast in Gateshead, and I was reading something just yesterday. There's been a report published about the state of prisons in the northeast, and apparently, by and large, they sort of require improvement is the phrase that they've gone with. I've known people managing prison better than being outside. Happier. Do you mean there, sorry, Louise, in terms of like people getting used to being in prison and sort of maybe the structure of it or the routine of it? And
well, I'm down in Kent, and sometimes, as I put in the post earlier, I've worked with care leavers and things like that, and they're actually happy to be in prison. I know it sounds really weird, but the structure, they don't have to worry about the bills, the just various reasons really, and some of the bed and breakfasts down here are absolutely dire, absolutely dire. So it's sounds a bit weird, I know, but
no, I can appreciate it. I can totally see why. Like you said, you're not having to think about your bills. You're getting your food, and you've got that, like you said, that structure and that routine.
And sometimes I've known people that have actually succeeded pretty well in prison. They've been on courses and they've got themselves, good sort of education and stuff, which they were never able to do at school sometimes. So
yeah, no, like I said, I can totally appreciate why that would be the case, because especially if it's someone coming from, maybe I'm stereotyping here slightly, but if someone coming from, say, traumatic background or a difficult background and you're in prison and you've got that, like you said, that structure and that routine, maybe that is beneficial for the person. I'm not saying it's a good thing for necessarily for someone, you know, spend their whole life in prison. That's not what it's about. But I can appreciate why for some people they might see that as a benefit, if you like.
Yeah, and it would be nice if we had some sort of accommodation that was on the outside, like that, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Right. So, oh, where's my mouse gone? There we are. Got a couple of case studies we're going to think about. So we've got Rebecca. So Rebecca lives alone, sent to prison for 18 months, previously was on universal credit, due to be released in 3 weeks. Her landlord commenced Section 21 eviction proceedings, and following a breakdown in relations with the family, she has no address to return to when she's being released. So what barriers is Rebecca facing here?
Homelessness.
Homelessness, yeah, the big one.
Benefits, because obviously it's over 6 months.
Yeah, so she's going to have to reclaim universal credit. It'll be the whole application process she has to go through again. So what support would we want to put in place there? So I just see people saying there, sorry, things like social support, lack of support system with the family. Yeah, might rely on things like food banks, another barrier there. So what kind of support would we want to try and get Rebecca out of that cycle?
Resettlements of the housing.
Yeah. So I'd want to be thinking about liaising with the resettlement worker in prison to help them work with Rebecca and think about, okay, what's it going to look like when you do get out? So have you got a place to stay? Do we need to get help from somewhere like Citizens Advice with a universal credit application once you get outside? You know, do we need to make an appointment with the job centre for you, like as soon as you leave, so you know that it's kind of teed up and ready for you? Housing application, supported accommodation, potentially, yeah, could look at, and benefit claims, yeah, certainly. So thinking about a housing, so does she need to make a homelessness application to the local authority? Could we get something through sort of alternative means? If we spoke to, say, the resettlement worker or whoever it might be, could they maybe liaise with a housing provider there? Is there some kind of like mentor support that might be available for Rebecca as well? I like it, thinking about it more holistically. Is there a local women's shelter she can go to as she's young and female and potentially unsafe? Yeah, certainly. So we might look at specific types of accommodation, specific refuges. In this case, Rebecca, like you said, she looks relatively young, she's single, she's female. So do we need to look at a women's refuge specifically, for instance? Sorry, I can see in the chat there, Michelle asking care leaver. What are you just asking if she's a care leaver there? Sorry. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Could be. Unfortunately, the statistics for care leavers who end up in prison, unfortunately, don't make very, very good reading, to be frank. So again, this is why this early support is crucial, because we want to try and remove those barriers. Then we've got Malcolm. So Malcolm's been in prison for 10 years, was previously on legacy benefits. So they are sort of older benefits, things like ESA and GSA that are being replaced by UC. But these ended when he went to prison. He's never claimed UC. He's due to be released in 2 months' time. At the moment, doesn't know where he'll go. He doesn't think he has any valid ID. So what barriers is Malcolm facing here? Yeah, so lack of ID. So is there somewhere that might be able to support him with that? Understanding the process. Yeah, so he spent 10 years in prison. His benefits will have ended when he went to prison. He's going to come out. He's going to have to claim universal credit, but he's doing it for the first time. So how well does he know that system? Yeah, like you said, Jessica, he's been inside for a long time. Society has moved on. Does he have an email address exactly? going to need an email address in this day and age, at the very least. I'd want to look at things like citizens advice help to claim service. So we have a service that we run that were commissioned specifically by the DWP to provide called Help to Claim, that deals with universal credit applications specifically. And we can offer sort of more tailored support to groups like prisoners, for instance. Excuse me. The changes in society, money, mobile phones, online services, family and children, digital literacy, YouTube videos. Yeah, so maybe something you can sort of favorite and come back to. It's going to be a big adjustment. So what kind of support would we want to see, would we want to put in place there? So I mentioned the possibility of maybe something like that, the help to claim service when it comes to universal credit. Anything else? Sandra, oh, you've done your homework, Sandra. I like it. New medical evidence is needed, ID and housing, supported accommodation, bank accounts, clothing and food grants, benefit claims. Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm going to break it down because you've quite rightly mentioned a few things there. New medical evidence. So yeah, does he have any kind of physical mental health conditions? He spent a long time inside. Might that have impacted his mental health? ID, housing. So does he need a passport? Does he need a driving license? If he does, where we're going to get that from? How is he going to get that? Is he going to need some kind of supported accommodation? Maybe. Again, he spent quite a lot of time inside, for want of a better phrase. Does he need that support? Does he need somebody there, if not round the clock, a bit more readily available than just sort of your average council house or private rented flat or whatever it might be? Bank accounts, certainly. Clothing, food grants. Do we need to look at places like the Turn to Us grant search tool? Do we need to think about any local food banks in terms of benefits? Like we've said, think about things like his universal credit. So does he have all of the documents that he needs? If he doesn't, does he know where to go to get them? Does he know how to? He's been inside for 10 years. Does he need substance misuse support? Yeah. So again, all things that I want to be addressing, and that could be through things like the prison work coach, the resettlement worker, the probation officer. Again, that sort of multi-agency support is going to be absolutely vital for him. And then the last one, we have David. So David's been in prison for 3 years, previously had a joint claim on legacy benefits with his partner Helen, still has a relationship, and he does plan to live with her when he leaves prison. He's heard from Helen that he's moved over to she's been moved over to UC, but doesn't know anything about the process or what being on universal credit will involve. So what barriers is David going to face?
If he's moving back in with Helen, he needs to set up a joint claim again because it would have gone back to a single claim.
Yeah. So Helen's still on universal credit. So when he comes out, he's going to have to join her claim. Thankfully, it's a little bit easier to join someone's claim rather than sort of making a whole new one. But yeah, he's going to have to join her claim and understand what he can get. So don't know how familiar, well, I know how familiar some of you are with UC, but don't know how familiar some others are. So with universal credit, because it's a joint claim, you'll get a bit more money through things like the standard allowance, certainly. But does he know how much that is? How is he going to manage the bills? It's been inside for 3 years. Anything else?
Budgeting, financial awareness will help.
Yeah, certainly.
Is he entitled to PIP?
Could be. So it's a chat I'd want to have with him. Sort of income maximization. Ask for bills to be paid directly out of UC payment. Could do potentially things like the fuel direct, for instance. It's a possibility. So could have it deducted from UC. It's a possibility. Better off work calculations. Think about any debts that they might have. So Do they have debts? He's been inside for 3 years, so how's Helen been managing on her own? Integrating into family life, yeah, it's going to be difficult. It is. Like we said, he's been inside for 3 years. He's going to come out. He's got Helen. It's going to be an adjustment, isn't it? It's not like he's going to come out and just suddenly everything's hunky-dory. Help finding employment as well. So is that through, are there any kind of local initiatives that might be available to him, or local organisations? Yeah. Right. So where can we go then? What kind of resources are available to help people when it comes to benefits and housing? So I have popped the link in the chat already to that universal credit guide that deals specifically with universal credit claimants who are ex-prisoners, essentially. Separately, there is also 1 or 2 links that I will send you later on. There is a lovely little service called Homeless Link, and they actually have a hostel search tool. And you can actually sort of filter it by different types of accommodation. So to go back to what I think Jessica mentioned earlier, in one of the case studies, she talked about the idea of maybe finding a woman's refuge. So you can use that hostel search tool to find, for instance, specific refuges, whether that's maybe because of sexuality or religion or whatever it might be. There is also some wonderful information available through Shelter, specifically in relation to housing and ex-prisoners specifically, that is available. But what I will do, folks, is I will send you an email shortly after the end of the session. You'll get an email with a couple of links relevant to what we've been talking about. So that does bring us towards the end of this session. So just to say, if you're not already aware, this has kind of been a very condensed version of a full day course that Society Matters is very proud to say that we run about prisoners and welfare benefits. So it's a full day CPD accredited session covering the effect of prison sentences of various types and various lengths on pretty much all of the benefits that you can possibly imagine, whether it's UC, whether it's PIP, or whatever it might be. It also looks at how we can help people make those benefit claims, the barriers that people face, and how we can help them overcome that as well. If you want to find out more, then I will pop a link in the chat to our website, and you can take a look at the full day course there if you are interested. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording now. And does anybody have any last questions?